guys, in this video we're going to be checking out whether 2 inches really matters, and we're going to be doing that by comparing the MacBook Pros from two different consumer perspectives. Me myself with the 14 inch, and my friend here Hamad with a 16 inch. I actually decided to go for the entry model version, which has the M3 Pro CPU in here. I didn't go for the Max or anything like that, I went for the M3 Pro. This one here has got 18 gig of RAM, 512 gig SSD, and the processor is 11 core and 14 core GPU. What did you go for?
So I myself bought the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M3 Pro CPU. It has 12 core CPU, 18 core GPU, 512 SSD, and the only difference is from the base model that I upgraded mine to 36 gig of RAM.
So you obviously chose the 16-inch MacBook. Why'd you go for the 16-inch instead of the 14?
Apart from compensating for my height.
Come on, bro. Come on. It's just because I'm bulking. Don't worry about it. He's tall. It's all right.
I chose a 16-inch because I come from the Intel 16-inch Mac, so I'm used to the screen size. And plus, I use this screen as my primary screen. I don't have any monitor on my desk. I don't work at my desk, and even if I do, I just work straight off the laptop. And obviously, when I'm working and I have multiple screens open and when I'm editing video, the 16-inch is definitely a good size, and I can't see myself working on a smaller screen because the timeline and having other apps open and all that just works better on a 16. But you went from a 16-inch Intel to a 14-inch, so why'd you do that?
Well, yeah, you are right. I used to have the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the Intel CPU, but after 4 years, I only had 200 battery cycles, so I had it plugged in 80% of the time when I was using it. I have a Dell 38-inch monitor at home, and what I found was that I never really wanted to put it on my lap. Every time I would put it on my lap, it felt heavy, it felt difficult to carry around. Like, I don't know, but when you feel this...
Yeah, it's obviously lighter and smaller and easier to carry.
Yeah. But, you know, it feels like you want to take it with you more. That one there feels a lot heavier when you compare it to this. So that was one of the reasons I went for the 14-inch, was I just wanted that portability form factor of having something a bit more smaller and unique. And when I need to do tasks like photo editing, video editing, or something that requires comparing two things, I'll plug it into a bigger monitor at home and use that, which would kind of compensate for not having that slightly larger real estate on the display. But I also found that when I use this now, so I had this for work the entire day, so I start around 9, finish at 5, doing quite a bit of stuff actually, or word-based stuff. Having two screens side by side on the 14-inch form factor was pretty difficult. Like, it was much easier on the 16-inch. But again, if I was doing that stuff normally, I would have it plugged into the display. And when I take the thing around with me, I'm not doing that type of stuff. It'll be single applications. And it took me a bit to get used to, but I think it's okay. I don't think it's a day and night difference, really.
So coming from the Intel MacBook Pro, where we have the 16 gig as a base, I went and upgraded to the 36, but you stayed with the base. I think it's 18 this time around. So why didn't you upgrade to the 36?
Look, from my understanding and from all the research that I've done, considering I'm doing photo and video editing as the more extreme stuff, design work, and pretty much like 30 Chrome tabs, 40 Chrome tabs, all at the same time, even on the Intel 16 gig, apart from the updates that which kind of slowed the computers a little bit down, I didn't really find that I was hitting the limitations. Like, I even installed iStat menu to check the pressure to see how much I was using, and I never really maxed out that 16 gig even for those type of tasks. So I ended up staying with 18 gig. I think 18 gig is good. I think the way that Apple does their compression on data in the memory seems to be a step above what Windows can do. Obviously having more RAM is better, but man, to drop $400 extra on just another 18 gig of RAM, it's a lot of money for what I would say might not be too much of a return. But you obviously went for 36 gig. What's your logic behind that?
The person that I am, I multitask a lot, and what I've found is that I don't want too much RAM to be used as swap. So I was seeing that in the Intel a lot, not a lot, but a fair amount was being used as swap. And I wanted to avoid that. So I decided to go for the 36. Obviously, like you said, more RAM is better. And in my head, more RAM is better. So for the extra $400, I decided that, you know what, I can now play music in the background as I edit. I can edit a thumbnail while I edit the video. I can have multiple layers in Photoshop. I can have multiple layers in Adobe Premiere. You yourself use Final Cut Pro, so I think you wouldn't have seen that much of a difference because it's optimized.
I don't know. Like when I was editing a few videos now with Final Cut, I noticed that when I was zooming in and out of the timeline, the actual footage was disappearing and then coming back when I would pause the video. I don't know if it's RAM. I don't think a lot of this stuff that you're talking about is RAM related. I think it's to do with software optimization on this hardware and this platform. Obviously, Premiere is a bit more intensive versus using like Final Cut, so you're having multiple apps open at the same time with that in the background might chew into your memory. But again, I don't know. Like, do you think it's more psychological, or do you think there is a difference having that extra RAM?
Look, I'm sure Apple spends billions on their marketing and advertisement, and I think maybe, just maybe this time around, they got me. So I chose the 16-inch chassis and you chose the 14-inch chassis, but we still both chose the M3 Pro chip.
Yeah.
So have you had any issues with thermals?
Well, doing my research before buying the laptop, what I found out from the older M series of CPUs is that the Pros in a 14-inch form factor weren't thermally throttling at all. And in terms of the running it actually with high-end applications open on my lap or sitting, I didn't really even hear the fans speed up too much. I didn't feel much heat or any issues. But I don't see any advantage having a 16-inch chassis with the M3 Pro in terms of gaining performance. But if we both went for Maxes, in that case, I would have most probably bought the 16-inch laptop with the Max CPU inside, because definitely the 14 inches thermal capacity does take a hit from all the benchmarks and testing that I saw. And what would happen is that I'm losing performance having the 14-inch with the Max CPU.
But I do know one thing, and it's something that you like doing. You like listening to some Balkan beats. And you went from a 16-inch chassis to a 14-inch, so obviously the speakers are tiny on this thing. Have you noticed any difference?
Yeah, I'm not going to admit it, but unfortunately the speakers on the 14-inch coming from even the Intel 16-inch MacBook, there is a downgrade. It is definitely a lot louder on the 16-inch. There's more bass, fills up the room. When I was outside, like watching YouTube videos, I literally had to like crank the volume all the way up, where I did not have to do that on the old 16. 14-inch, 16-inch, trackpad definitely larger. That's something I also picked up on in my original video of unboxing this one. You had to play with mine. I don't know, coming from the 16-inch myself, it does take a little bit just to get used to that placement of your palms, where I found on this one here, you had a little bit more real estate. Don't know, you had a little bit of play, what do you think?
To be honest, I enjoy the larger trackpad, and that's one of the reasons why I stuck with the 16, not just for the screen size, but also for the trackpad. Because when I'm dragging stuff along, I usually run out of real estate on the 14. But 16, you still have a lot more room to move your fingers around.
16-inch, bigger battery. 14-inch, smaller battery, bigger screen size, maybe consumes a bit more battery life. Man, comparison to the old MacBook that I had, which is the Intel one, the battery life on this thing is demolishing that completely. This one here, I literally unplugged at 8 a.m. in the morning. I was working on the computer the entire day to 5 p.m. and I had still about 35% battery life.
Well, this one so far, I've left this open. I've edited 2 videos, exported them, edited photos, exported them. It's been on for 2 days, roughly 1.5. It's still on 40%. So barely sweating it. Definitely battery life has improved amazingly.
16-inch, 14, do you have any regrets?
No regrets. And I'm glad I went for the 16, bigger screen, bigger battery, better speakers, bigger trackpad. And obviously the color I chose was also same as yours, the black one. So definitely I enjoy my choice, but if I don't want to have a bias, so I don't want to sound like an Apple fanboy, There's one regret I do kind of have is that I went for the 36 gig of RAM as opposed to the 18, and I paid an extra $400 for it. So obviously I went for the 16 inch and you went for the 14, down from the 16 originally that you had.
Yeah.
Any regrets?
Oh, I like trying something different. I definitely find that I've gravitated to taking this laptop more around with me. So when I went in the kitchen, I went outside, and doing those type of things, I really didn't look forward to taking my 16 inch with me. It felt cumbersome. So there's an advantage having this smaller form factor for me personally. Coming from obviously the Intel 16, yes, definitely the slightly smaller screen real estate, you do notice a little bit of a difference, but it's not night and day. And if you have an external monitor to plug it into, like which I do, I don't really care about. And battery life, this thing here is still destroying the older laptop, like 3 times longer battery life in the smaller form factor. So wrapping it up, obviously, thanks for coming onto the channel. Obviously, if you guys haven't subscribed, feel free to do so and leave a comment if you have any perspectives of your own. I hope that this insight to our decision making with a little bit of personal opinions has guided you to make the right choice. If you have any questions, feel free, and we'll both try to drop answers down below. And thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys in another video shortly. Peace be with you.